Hey everybody, Chris Thunder Laser, and in this video I want to cover the Aurora series and using a chuck rotary. In fact, using any rotary, because there's only a couple things that change when we're going from a roller to a chuck or vice versa. So one of the first things we need you to do is go to the Thunder USA website, then go to Resources, Knowledge Base, and I'm just going to paste this in here, but we are looking for chuck rotary setup and usage in LightBurn. There are two different ones to choose from. We want the Aurora. All right, so once you are in our knowledge base article, we are looking at a few different things, a few different settings that are a must-do prior to using your rotary. Now, let me pull up LightBurn real quick and kind of go through side by side on this. So, the first thing you're going to do is go into your laser tools, go to your rotary setup. And one of the major things that we are going to select, depending on what rotary we're using, is chuck or roller. In this video, I am specifically using the Talent. So it is a chuck rotary. I want to enable rotary, and this is going to allow the galvo to move the rotary, pulse it, and make sure that it does spin. Depending on which way we are placing it, we may want to reverse the direction, or we can flip a dip switch on the actual rotary. If you're having issues with inverted engravings, message support and we'll get you squared away. But leaving it the regular way and returning to start point, I like it to come back to where it started when I finished, in case I want to run it again. Especially on a chuck, you can obviously run it multiple times, where on a roller it tends to shift positions a little bit, so you probably wouldn't be worrying about running it again. All right, so on the galvo setup, those are your two major concerns as far as getting the rotary to spin correctly. Again, I know that the Talent is 8200. I'm going to input that right now. And then for the object diameter and circumference, we're just measuring our material. So 20-ounce cup, 30-ounce cup, what have you. We're measuring that, inputting that, and then you can always, LightBurn has a stepped measuring feature, which it'll project parts of your splits onto the cup to show where it's going to end up. So that's a very, very good way to verify where things are going to land on the cup and if your sizing is correct. Okay. So now what I want to do is I have my steps per rotation. I'm going to say, let's say that we have something that's 8 inches in circumference. And again, these are connected. They will move together. So you only have to measure one or the other. I am going to set my Talent up to run on the y-axis. And we are not messing around with any of our acceleration speeds or anything like that. And we click OK. So before we go over to the machine and basically hit the start button to show you the next window that pops up, I want to show you in here we have our split setup. And I have a few things listed in this document, in the article, about the settings that I use. And I am going almost as small as possible for these splits, to try to kind of make it react like a gantry rotary, where it's making a line, moving the cup, making a line, moving the cup. Otherwise, with the galvo, it is actually making a split size, the size that you are requesting. So this would be right here, if you look at this image, it's going to mark a 1.5 millimeter space and then move to the next one. So if you look up at this picture, you can see how wide these splits are. I mean, they're pretty thick splits, and they're noticeable, and it's very difficult to get them to align correctly, especially on a tapered cup. Even though LightBurn has a taper correction tool now, it is still quite difficult. So making these splits, while it takes longer to run, it makes it a lot better outcome. Let's see if I have that. Yeah, so in this image here, we can see that I have 0.004 of an inch split size with a minimal overlap. And as you can see with the Space Force logo, this came out really well. You would have to, really zoom in and inspect it to see the splits, because it is kind of acting like a gantry where it's running a line, moving, running a line, moving. The lines are so small. Obviously the lines are 0.004 of an inch. There is a limit to how far down you can go on this. I don't remember exactly what it is, but we may see that in the next video clip when we are working with the machine. Besides our video on here, another one to watch is any of the Laser Everything videos on the Galvo. They have very good information, very detailed, so something to watch when you have some time. Also looking at this, we have our split size, our overlap size, our object diameter, and this is all the window that pops up when you go to hit start, and we'll see that again on the next clip. Run shapes in order. Yes, we want to run all the shapes in order. I typically don't run whole shapes if possible. Maybe if you're doing just text, that would be fine. It's going to try to run the letters individually. But if you're running a graphic like this, you're trying to run the whole thing and not just parts of. You can jog. I do recommend, like if you're doing some testing, returning to 0, and that will bring the cup back to its start position. Rotary on these things are quite finicky, so just pay attention to if it is returning, and if it doesn't, go ahead and hit go to 0 and it'll bring it right back around. This will count the position as well. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, let's move over to the other machine and computer that's connected to it, and I will show you exactly how this works. All right, looking at the Talent, I have it on the T-mounts, still loose so that I can move it around and get it square with the laser head so that my graphics come out correctly as they spin. I also want to be able to put my cup on here and autofocus to the correct spot, and make sure that I have it level. So I'm going to need some type of bubble level to make sure that I am level when I am adjusting this. Also, I have my Tailor tape so that I can measure, and how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to pick a spot, come all the way around, and find out how large this cup is, and this is 10.75. That is pretty exact as long as the Tailor tape is correct, but it's 10.75 for my circumference. So one other thing to note is the laser head, or the lens that we're using, is going to be the smallest one because we need the most clearance up and down. Using the larger heads to get a larger work area will not work on this, because when you're getting the larger area, you have to be further away. We're raising up to about 4 inches, and raising it up as high as we need to be means that we need to use the smaller lens to get that height, that clearance. So typically what I want to do is I want to put the cup on the chuck and make sure that it is secure. So I'm going to actually get these fingers spread out a little bit more. Continue to spread them out until they start to make contact with the interior of the cup, and then I can tighten it down. Also, I can use this push button, which will lock the wheel from spinning, and I can tighten it even more. Just be careful if you're doing some glass on, let's say, the UV, just don't over tighten it. So what we're looking for is this not to wobble around. Make sure we have it on there securely and straight, and it's pretty good. Loosening these thumb screws here will allow you to make it level, and I'm just going to put this on the center there, and let's see, I believe there's one on the other side. No, there we go. So push down on the back side of the motor to raise it up a little bit, or down. Okay, level, tighten it back up. And now I can use my autofocus to get this to the correct distance. And then once I have that set, I'm actually going to move this to the back underneath the lens so that I can position it correctly before I tighten it down and make it secure so that I can repeat the engravings on these cups. Okay, so we have the cup secure and leveled. We have the rotary in position, but it's not straight yet. So there's a couple things that you can do to make sure that you are aligned correctly. One of the things would be a jig, and the jig you would be setting up on the flat surface and then moving your rotary to that jig. One of the things that I like to do is, let's take you over to the computer real quick. I like to build a small rectangle, usually about 1.5 inches is perfect so that I can see how it lines up on the edge of the cup. I move my graphic all the way to the edge because I'll be checking this on the lip of the cup. I make sure that I'm on bounds so that I can see the rectangle, and I frame it. It's just framing there so I can move the cup according to the positioning. And let's go back over to the cup real quick. Now, it's hard to see, so let's turn our lights off. And now if I look at it, I can see the positioning. And if I move the cup, then I can see it's way off there. It's way off there. So what I want is I want it to be positioned so that it is just on the edge of the cup to make sure that it's lining up. And you're going to have a little bit of a bend in the middle, so I'm making sure the two endpoints are in the same location. So it should be right at the tip of the cup, like so. Now there's, like I said, there's many ways to do it. This just happens to be the way that I do it, but I'll use a dummy cup, a test cup, and I will run little markings on it to make sure that it is correct. Because if it is not, all of your split lines will end up in a different location, and it'll look absolutely ridiculous. But making sure that you are the same distance away from the edge of the cup is going to be paramount to getting these things to work well. Rotary on the Galvo could be completely frustrating. So you have to take your time and have this part set up correctly, and then going into the next part with the split sizes, that's going to be huge as well. Once you have that rectangle aligned with the lip of the cup, I recommend tightening this down so it does not move anymore. And then you can start to mess with your engraving. Okay, so one of the things that I did not mention was we need to have the rotary disabled for when we're doing this alignment rectangle, because otherwise it breaks it down into splits, and you're not going to be able to see the full size of the rectangle. So just make sure you are aligning things. If you're going to use my method, Then make sure it's aligned with the rotary disabled, and then we can go back and now we can enable the rotary. Now that we know we have it lined up correctly, we can recenter our graphic, or position it wherever you need it to be on your cup. And when you have the red light framing on, you can actually use your arrow keys to move it, and it will move on the cup or the piece that you're engraving. So a very good way to dial it in and move it to where you need it. Now, once you have the rotary enabled and you go to click start, so this is a great place that you can go in and double check your setup. Now, these are the baseline settings for the rotary. As you can tell that on this rotary, I am on the wrong version of the machine. So make sure you have your correct device selected, so based off of the lens. So I'm going to select my Thunder 100 watt with the 160 millimeter lens. Going to reposition my graphic to the center, and I'm going to hit start. Okay, so looking at my rotary setup, I have Chuck Rotary enabled, return to start point, going to check on the direction once I engrave it, but it should be correct since I've already set this up and tested it. My steps per rotation, as discussed, 8400. I did remeasure, and my object is 11 inches in circumference. We are on the y-axis, as you can see or saw. That's the way the cup is facing. Click OK. And now, split size. This is something that I really can't tell you the perfect solution. You're going to have to play with it. The overlap will change. The split size will change depending on the graphic. Now, if I'm doing a photo or a very intricate graphic, I bring this down to the lowest possible, and LightBurn will warn you. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have it as low as possible. I'm going to have a minimal overlap. I do not want, you will create darker areas if you are overlapping too much. So just be cautious of that. And let's see. You can run whole shapes if possible. And this is going to be more for text and smaller graphics, larger graphics, and like I said, graphics with more detail. You're going to want to run it in splits. So now we can make sure that the rotary is at 0. If you click go to 0 and by some chance it has spun already, it will return back to its 0. Like if I jog it, it will move the cup ever so slightly and return to 0. Like this, I can jog it left or right, I hit return to 0, and it goes right back. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit start on this, and let's see how it reacts. Okay, so taking a look at our result, we have proven that we are at least squared in the machine. So we are equal distance from each side. The thing I don't like about this is the overlap. So it seems like, I can see all of my split lines. So I want to adjust that some, and be patient. This is going to be something that takes a little bit of manipulation and testing to figure out exactly where you need to be. And it will change from cup to cup. Once you have a good setting dialed in, then you're probably going to get some pretty good results, like that. But it will require testing to find out exactly where you need to be. Yeah, don't be afraid to buy some cheap tumblers off of Amazon or something at the dollar store or something, and just use that as your dummy cup to really fine-tune your skills. One other thing that I'm going to recommend before we let you go on and start really messing around with this is these cups, even though they show as they are level, you can see there's definitely variations in the height. So feel free when you're doing your testing to find that perfect distance, you know, by using your up and down to adjust your focus. As you can see right now, we are really not doing much of anything, but if I adjust my focus, I can fine tune that and get the exact focus to where I need to be on this tumbler. So some playing around that needs to be done, but really once you have it fine tuned, the results are amazing. You know, the beam size on this, you can get excellent detail, and it can be done relatively quickly with, you know, with your fine tuned settings. So good luck, guys. Use the resources that we have, this video along with the article to help you get things dialed in, and then also other sites like Laser Everything that has a whole bunch of information about how to use these galvos.